In January 1971, the Perron family, Carolyn, Roger, and their 5 daughters moved into a large 14-room farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. According to Andrea, the eldest child, strange things began to happen immediately. As she and her sisters were bringing in boxes, they passed a man standing in the dining room, and he totally ignored them. Suddenly, the man vanished into thin air. Also, the family dog refused to enter the house and was found dead the following morning. Numerous other paranormal events began happening in the home. The parents and visitors to the home would often hear banging, knocking, footsteps, and voices. Doors would open by themselves and chairs would vibrate. Physical contact from paranormal presences was also experienced. The daughters were sometimes grabbed by their feet and pulled from their beds, for example. The daughters began to see spirits, mostly benign, but some were clearly hostile. Upon investigation, it was found that the house had been occupied by the same family for 8 generations, with many of them meeting tragic and mysterious ends. Some children had drowned in a nearby creek, others were murdered, and a few had hanged themselves in the attic. Among these figures was a woman named Bathsheba Sherman, who lived on the property in the mid-1800s. Bathsheba was rumored to be a Satanist and was implicated in the death of a neighbor's child, though she was never tried. She was buried in a nearby Baptist cemetery. The parents believed that Bathsheba's spirit was the most malevolent presence in their home. Andrea Perron, the eldest daughter, recounted disturbing experiences including encounters with spirits that smelled of rotting flesh and incidents where beds would lift off the floor. Her father, Roger, would feel a cold, rancid presence when he ventured into the basement, where they frequently had heating issues. It wasn't just the house, it's the property. The barn is as active as the house is, and the property is as active as both the house and the barn. There's an awful lot of elemental activity. There's tons of extraterrestrial activity there. And I think it has something to do with the fact that the farm is built on top of an ancient river which was lost during the last ice age. It's known as the Lost River of New Hampshire, but it actually runs all the way underground. It's buried about 700 feet underground. And on certain days when the water is very heightened and rushing, you can actually feel the vibration of it in the land. And you can lay on the stone walls and feel the stones vibrating from the river rushing underneath our feet, said Andrea Perron. There were at least a dozen spirits that we were very familiar with, that we saw over and over and over again. Another interesting thing was that none of us had any fear of the spirit that we saw that first day moving in. It was not that kind of a vibe at all. In fact, he appeared to be very sweet-natured and cheerful. But within the first couple of nights that we lived there, my sister Cindy came crawling into bed with me and she was obviously upset. She was only 8 years old and asked if she could sleep with me. And I said, "Of course." Then I pulled back the quilt and she hopped down. I'm like, "What's wrong?" She kept saying, "I hear voices. There's voices in the room and I'm scared," and it got louder and louder. "I can't believe you didn't hear it. I can't believe it didn't wake you up." And at first, she was at that time sharing a room with Christine. And my sister Christine has a tendency to talk in her sleep from time to time. So, I think I just assumed that Chris was doing that. And I asked her, and she said, "No, it's not me." She said, "It's a whole bunch of voices and they're all talking at the same time. And they're all saying the same thing." So naturally I asked her what they were saying and her response was, "There are 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall. There are 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall over and over and over." And she said all the voices were what you would describe as monotone, like they were all talking together, and they all had basically the same voice. And they were all saying the same thing at the same time. And they were all around her bed to the point where the floorboards were shaking. The bed was shaking, and she put the pillow over her head to try to muffle the sound. And when it became so loud that she couldn't tolerate it anymore, that's when she jumped out of bed and ran into my room and got in bed with me. Over the 10 years the family lived there, the renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren visited several times. During one visit, Lorraine conducted a seance in an attempt to communicate with the spirits. During this seance, Carolyn Perron allegedly became possessed, speaking in an unknown language and levitating in her chair. Andrea, who secretly witnessed this event, described it as terrifying. Her mother's chair flew across the room, and her voice was unrecognizable. Despite the dramatic depiction of an exorcism in the film adaptation, Lorraine Warren maintained that they would never attempt an exorcism themselves, as it required a Catholic priest. After the seance, Roger, concerned for Carolyn's well-being, asked the Warrens to leave. Financial constraints forced the Perrons to remain in the house until 1980, when they finally moved out. With their departure, the disturbances ceased. And that's where our journey through the true story behind The Conjuring comes to a close. As we've seen, the Perron family's harrowing experiences were not just a chilling story but a real-life encounter with the unknown. Their ordeal left a lasting impact, not only on their lives but also on the world of paranormal investigation. If you found this deep dive into the real events behind The Conjuring intriguing, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content exploring the stories that inspire some of our favorite films and legends. Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Do you believe in the paranormal? Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for our next video, where we'll uncover the truth behind another gripping tale from the world of horror. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.